So my name is Major General retired Brian Watson. I'm the president of Army Engineer Association. I want to welcome you to another engineer rally point. Just a few words about this particular forum. This forum is all about you. Yes, it's facilitated by AEA, but it is of the regiment for the regiment. It's designed for mid-grade and junior leaders to talk about their lessons. We're a little more senior in this audience than we normally are because the issue that we want to talk about today is one that we must, as a regiment, be clear-eyed and have a common view as senior leaders and mid-grade leaders. And so we're going to depart a little bit from trying to get down to the tactical edge tonight. Instead, we're going to talk about the future and where things are going. Look, this forum is designed for AEA to help the regiment connect with itself and with industry. That's the sole purpose here. You asked for a virtual professional development forum. You asked for it to be in the evening and to be portable. You wanted it by Zoom so that you could do it after hours, and you wanted us to record it so that we can hang them on the Army Engineer website. And so we've done all that. Tonight's topic is, I think, one of the most important topics that we have been able to have a discussion on. And so I'll turn it over to the 100th Commandant of the Army Engineers, Colonel Promotable Cleet Getz. Sir, over to you. My Commandant,
hey, sir,
my Commandant.
Sir, thanks. And always thanks to AEA for everything that you do for the regiment. And you're right. I think this is a tremendously important session, to discuss how we're going to manage talent in the regiment in the context of E30F. I think a lot of folks know on the 25th of May, the Vice approved E30F. It's a really significant change in how we're going to array engineers in the active component. And when I talk to units about this, and this topic comes up, I can begin to see people shift in their seats. And I could tell that they're asking themselves what this means to them. And I understand it. 20 years ago, when engineer battalions became brigade special troops battalions, I asked myself the same question when I was a company commander, because I sensed the ground was shifting, and you might have that same sense today that the ground is shifting. And so we're going to see shifts in structure. Structure is going to change, but our role as engineers has absolutely not. Our three core competencies: combat, general, geospatial, our four lines of effort, those things that make the regiment what it is, our nature, are not going to change. And I don't see any future where the Joint Force and the Army don't ask us to do those things. And so I think that's my first point, is that we've been here before. And the older among us have seen this now a few times. And so there's some accumulated perspective here. But if this is the first time you're seeing this, you'll find some comfort in knowing that this isn't new, although it may be new to you. A second, I sense some opportunity here, and Colonel Davis is going to get into that, and I'll weigh in throughout. But I know that many of you have technical skills and interest in geospatial and general engineering that you want to use. And I think you're going to have more opportunities to use them because of this. Many of you want to maintain your grounding and contact with maneuvers, common engineers. That's not going to change. And some of you want to continue to experience the full breadth of what the regiment has to offer. And I'm telling you, you're going to have it. The Army is going to continue to shape opportunities, and your performance and not your branch is going to be the thing that's determinative to what opportunities the Army makes available to you. And so we're a results-based organization. We always have been. So regardless of activations or inactivations, the need for talent is constant. Talent never deactivates. And we've got that in spades in the regiment, and I need to keep it. And I need every single one of you. Because this period in our Army reminds me of those years between World War I and World War II, the interwar years. I really believe that the period we're in now is analogous to that. And we saw new challenges and technologies that changed the character of war back then, and we're seeing the same thing now. And the talent that emerged to win World War II came of age during that period. And that's many of you here on this net. And the leaders of the regiment that are going to win our next war, and it's coming, are you right now. And we need every single one of you. Our regiment has been strong since June 16th, 1775, remained strong throughout. but it has always changed. It's always been responsive to change, the need to change from within our Army. And so what I'm asking you for is for your trust, and your continued dedicated selfless service through this period of change. Keep the lines open. Reach out to me. Reach out to the regimental command sergeant major. Reach out to the regimental command chief warrant officer. We will always answer your questions, and I'm proud of each and every one of you. So JD, over to you. JD,
JD,
how do you
on?
read?
We can't hear you, sir.
Okay, Ty, just stand by. Say, JD, you got the rows. And then just before Colonel Davis gets started, we're going to hold the questions to the end. And I just have found in doing that, that's the most efficient. Myself, Colonel Tyson, and I'm sure Command Sergeant Major Plummer and others will monitor the chat. So if you have a question, type it in the chat. I'll try and amalgamate what are the big themes, and we'll use that to drive our questions and answers at the end. And as I told JD, this topic is so important to the Commandant. If we go over, we go over. All right. It's not, we don't have to stay within the hour because I really want to get and spend time for questions. So one of my favorite leaders, JD, over to you, sir.
Sir, team, first off, Major General Retired Watson and Colonel Getz, 93rd Commandant of the Engineer Regiment and the 100th Commandant of the Engineer Regiment. Thanks for the opportunity to provide an update to our engineer leaders across the regiment at the AEA Rally Point this evening concerning a very important topic that you all have hit on, which is our Engineer Force Design Update 2030. The purpose of this AEA presentation this evening will be to inform, socialize, and discuss our E30F talent management efforts and reinforce the Chief of Engineers and the Commandant's thoughts after several engagements we've had with them over the past couple months. And hey, just like Colonel Getz, sir, you hit on, we acknowledge there's a lot of angst across the force as E30F looks like a significant decrease in key and developmental positions for our lieutenant colonels, our majors, our captains, our senior NCOs, and our warrant officers, which could be viewed as a lack of upward mobility and career progression for them in the future. However, at Engineer Branch, we see there's a challenge on the horizon, but equally, there's also an opportunity with E30F to better align and manage engineer talent for the Army of 2030 and beyond. And so that's what we really want to get in and talk about today. And that's kind of where we're starting off at. So we'll go on and kick this one off here. So I'm going to go to next slide. We've already hit open and comments. Okay, so here's what we're briefly going to talk about tonight, the agenda. We're going to start out with a big picture overview of Army operational concept and engineer talent management within it. We'll kind of walk the dog from the Army of the 1990s all the way up until we are today and how we manage talent throughout it. Then we're going to look at we're going to zoom in on the problem sets, start big and get smaller, and go right into where we are at E30F currently and where we see ourselves by the time we get to 2030. Then we're going to look at framing the talent management problem set and framing what we're trying to get after and what we're trying to do. Then we're going to break it down by grade plate and look across the spectrum to make sure that everybody understands the opportunities we're looking at. And we also, like Major General Retired Watson and the Commandant said, looking to get your feedback on things we could explore or some other things we could be doing to better manage your talent moving forward. Okay, so moving on, here we are. Engineer talent management in the Army operational concept. And so what we're going to do is use this as a big picture way to walk ourselves from how we started in the 80s and 90s with air-land battle all the way through the global war on terror to where we're at now as we transition to multi-domain operations and our interactions with peer threats. So first off, if we were to look at air-land battle talent management, the key talking point for us at Engineer Branch when we saw this was it is all about industrial age talent management. So in essence, there you had a very large Army, upwards of 750,000 soldiers in the active component alone. So we saw officers had a traditional career path. You were very much PL, XO, company commander, on to major, on to lieutenant colonel, on to colonel, and then beyond if you could. Same thing with our NCOs. We saw a very focused structure on like, you needed to stay in the operational Army. The way the chief of engineers puts it is, it was almost like, dare I say, the kiss of death. It was highly unadvised for an officer to broaden, TRADOC, you may never come back from there. USACE, dare I say USACE, you may never be competitive again if you go there. ROTC, all the other broadening opportunities you have right now, in the past, they were there, but it was highly looked upon and focused that you have to stay in the operational Army to be competitive and continue to promote. So we saw that there were some technical capabilities there, but it was not the central part of our force. And I think a lot of that was just based off the fact we had a huge Army. We had to get a lot of people through key developmental positions, and that was the focus. Transitioning over to the global war on terror. So that's the Army that kind of I grew up in. And when you look at it, full spectrum operations, talent management, focused on high tempo deployments and increased flexibility in management of our officers and NCOs as we now get to more options with our assignment cycles and our ask and our aim to marketplaces. But overall, the focus during the global war on terror was combat level leaders, tactical level leadership. The focus was really on building leaders that could deploy, fight, and win, building leaders that could accomplish missions in combat, bring their soldiers home safe, and then get ready to train up and go again. So we saw a focus on talent management, on tactical units, and the development of tactical level leaders. Now, as we transition towards where we are now with unified land operations, we're starting to see a little bit more flexibility. We've got junior officer developmental programs, our tech DP, our geo DP, our soft DP. We've got more broadening opportunities for NCOs at certain points in their careers. And then also we have opportunities for people to have more of a say in where they're going in the marketplace, help to manage their own talent. But I think there's still some room to adjust. And we see that potentially with our Engineer Force Design Update 2030, the shift to multi-domain operations and peer threats. And what we really see is in the future, we see more flexibility and greater technical depth. We see our engineer regiment and our engineer junior leaders and officers, NCOs and warrant officers, maintaining the tactical proficiency and relevancy that we've developed over the last 20 years fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. But also we see ourselves being broadened. We see more opportunities for greater depth and breadth in our technical focused areas, like the Commandant hit on. We see career paths focused in geospatial engineering, districts, DPWs. We see more things that you have a path to get to certain jobs and areas you'd like to. And then also we see KSBs being developed that will make ourselves more broadened by the time you get to the 06 level. Gentlemen, I will pause there. Colonel Getz, Regimental Command Sergeant Major Plummer, see if you have any thoughts before I move on over.
JD, I don't. I think that's pretty well put, right? Yeah, it's a case of technology giving us the ability to more closely manage officers, according to their skills and their knowledge and behaviors, right? We're in a good place. So I have nothing further. Sergeant Major, to you, if you got anything.
No, sir, nothing to add. I think that was a good laydown of where we've been, where we're going, and how we kind of got to some of the decisions that we're making over.
All right, acknowledge all, gentlemen. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so now we're zooming in on the problem set and zooming in on where we currently are at as of today, 2023. Like the Commandant hit on, E30F approved by the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army on 25 May, about to go
Sir,
into
we lost your audio.
Oh, let's see it. Anybody hear me? Radio check?
You're good.
Okay, good. Hey, so recap where we're at right now. You see us, Engineer Talent Management 2030 environment, where we're at today. E30F just got approved 25th of May. We're waiting on the final R-Struct to come out, which will have the laydown of units and deactivation dates, and will shape the structure and start the process from now and into the future. To highlight from fiscal year 25 to 27 is when we see a lot of these force adjustments going on. Then we're going to actually right size and make sure we're good to go by the time we get to 2030. So when I look at this slide, I want to highlight for everyone, in case you're not familiar with what's going on. As the Army pivots to multi-domain operations, we're going to make the division the primary fighting force, and no longer it will be the brigade. That necessitates the transition of enablers to include engineers to the division level. in essence, we want to move engineers to the division level so you can concentrate in the offense and mass in the defense. And if you look at what's going on in Ukraine, it's an excellent example of the fight that would need to be had, as we have multiple brigades within USARAF and multiple divisions forward with their command nodes to help mission command the NATO response to reinforce, assure, and deter the Russian threat that could be going on in Ukraine. You can see that going on and why it's needed. But with that, we're going to see, as E30F happens, we're going to go from 43 operational battalions down to 25, and we'll see the reduction of 18 operational battalions and all of our BEBs as that transpires. So what I'd like to draw your attention on as you look at this from a conceptual standpoint, you see the ops bubble, which we currently have a large operations footprint with 31 BEBs and all of our tactical forces that are there. But when you look into the future in 2030 on this slide, you see that we give to a smaller ops bubble. Our training remains the same in terms of our commands and opportunities there, and our USACE remains the same. And that kind of drives towards some of the problems that we're going to have with our USACE 06 level commands and our tactical brigade level commands and our TRADOC brigade level commands remaining parity. They're the same, but we're decreasing our force structure with our 05 CSL opportunities from 69 to 51. And that's going to create some friction and tension as we move forward, which is why we're exploring at the lieutenant colonel level, GPCs, additional USACE commands for 05s by some adjustments the chief is looking to make, and also DPWs maybe being CSL in the future to better meet the 05 level requirements to get to 06. So you can see where we're at today. I've talked about that, but where we see ourselves in the future, we've got an engineer regiment that's relevant in tactical relevancy maintained, but deepening in technical expertise across the spectrum of Army 2030 operations. We see increased diversity in tactical and technical in career paths, like the commandant said. The chief likes to say there's no one pathway to success. And I think that's going to be the key here in the future. There's multiple ways to a successful career moving forward. There's greater depth in geospatial, general engineering, and facilities engineering. Like the commandant said, we're hitting all of the core engineer disciplines and create more opportunities for junior leaders and NCOs to move into those. And also we have officers capable of solving complex and deep problem sets. We're engineers. That's what we do. That's our bread and butter. It's not going to change from now into the future. Colonel Getz and RCSM, I'm going to pause here to see if you all have any comments on this slide.
No, I'm good, JD. Thanks.
Good to go, sir.
Okay. We're going to move on to our next slide, where we will start looking at the actual problem set here. So if there's any, staff majors or captains, that are fighting on a staff, or if you've been through the career course or CGSC, this will probably look familiar to you. This is how we're framing the E30F talent management problem set. So we got a problem statement, then we got factors surrounding the problem and kind of laying out what we're trying to achieve and some of the unique characteristics or unique things that we're bound by. So first off, in the future, the engineer regiment needs to smartly manage, retain, and advance engineer talent that consists of officers, NCOs, and warrant officers to meet all the operational requirements for the Army 2030 and beyond. Factors surrounding the problem, like we've spoken about. Here's what 18 engineer battalions loss means. It means the loss of 18 CSL positions for our 05s, lieutenant colonels, 18 CSL command sergeant major billets, acknowledging, and Sergeant Major Plummer can talk about this in more detail. We put op sergeant majors into all the remaining operational battalions. So the loss of sergeant major positions on the NCO side, not as great as the impact we're having on the officer side. But we're also losing 36 major KD positions, 39 captain KD positions, and 17 CW2 warrant officer positions. So that's the overall loss. And that's what we're looking to. How can we bring back, how can we find some positions to get ourselves back on track in the future and create opportunities for all of you all on the net if you're a junior leader. So some of the key factors surrounding this problem as well. It's a zero growth Army. When I say that, I'm saying that in the Army structure we have today, everybody can see that we're slightly on the decline. So if we bring back a position or create new force structure, it has to be parity. Like I can't create something new without taking away something old. So in essence, if we create a new position, we have to harvest it from existing force structure, or we have to get a new position from somewhere else in the Army. But we are an Army that is currently overstructured and undermanned and underassessed. You all are aware of the recruiting challenges we have and also the retention challenges. So there's no growing new units. Other factors surrounding the buyback problems that we're looking at. Talent management. Whatever we come up with to bring back positions, we want to build KSPs for the engineer regiment and knowledge, skills, and behaviors that'll keep all of you all competitive and maintain upward mobility in the Army. Career progression, like I said, competitiveness. If we create KD positions at all control grades or all at echelon. We want to make sure you have a rating chain where you can be competitive and still get promoted and still achieve what you deem as success in the Army. Scope and scale, meaning if we find something that doesn't justify or doesn't meet the requirements to get the Army to approve it or get it approved here at HRC as a position, then that's not going to work. We want to make sure that the level of impact and influence justifies someone going into it. And we're making sure that positions are desirable to the force, meaning there are things that you all on the net would want to be interested in and want to pursue and would rank high in your ask marketplace or your aim to marketplace. Sir, Sergeant Major, I will pause here for any of your comments.
Yeah, thanks, JD. I think that the first thing you got to realize is if we wanted to get after this challenge, really we could do it with the snap of our fingers by changing DAPAM 600-3 and start making more things or everything KD, right? That's obviously not the right answer. We want to come out of this with officers having go through these key developmental experiences with enhanced KSVs so that they're better able to be future more senior leaders in our Army. And then subset of that is we got to build positions that allow for career progression within the force. I am really confident that we're going to be able to get most of these back, in some cases all of these back, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But I'm really, really positive on where we're going, and I think JD is going to get into that in the coming slides.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge all. Okay, so just as the commandant just kind of set us up for the natural transition to this slide. So in terms of engineer, lieutenant colonel, talent management. So when I briefly mentioned that we have a slight problem set with the transition from lieutenant colonel to colonel, it's depicted on the graphs on the left of this slide. So when you look at it, we're laying out lieutenant colonel available commands through fiscal year 30, and we're laying out colonel promotion rates, which was historically hovering around 59%, and then available commands at the 06 level. And what you'll quickly realize as you stare at this slide is as we decline and deactivate our battalions at the 05 level to move down to 51, excuse me, it'll be 23 odd numbered year groups, 28 even numbered year groups is what we're projected. Then we're going to have a problem with meeting our 06 level requirements for the chief of engineers by the time we get to around 2030, which is really starting out with the year group 07 CSL. When 07 year group officers start going to CSL, they'll be the colonels in 2030. So you can quickly see, but I'm looking at the slide where the red depicts is where we're going to be short. And it begs the question of what are we going to do about this? So we've already explored potentially going to 85% promotion rates to colonels. We've talked to the director of military personnel management and the HRC, excuse me, in the HQDAG1. They said, yeah, that's a possibility. We could go to 85% promotion rates, but that probably is not value added because then we might not have the right talent commanding at the brigade level or 06 level. So we want to find other ways to solve this, which is really what this slide is getting at. So if you look on the right, it shows what we're going to lose, how it's going to play out. 25 operational battalions commanding, 12 training support battalions in 1st Army, Div East, Div West, 4 TRADOC battalions in 1st Engineer Brigade attached to the schoolhouse, and then 10 USACE districts of note, 9 USACE districts, but 249 prime power for the E30F math actually counts towards USACE because they're a part of USACE and they're viewed as a strategic level command from the HQDAG through Prop 7. So the question I'm asking, and we're going to wait till the end to answer it, is like, where do we need to put engineer lieutenant colonels in the future to retain a qualified pool for our 06 level command requirements? And some of the things we're exploring, just to briefly touch on, geospatial planning cell commanders. Is there an opportunity for us to use some of the geospatial talent that we're generating with our Geo DP program and also the School of Royal Military Survey Fellowship, and then create some opportunities for them? We know there's a need in our ASCCs. Our engineers that are there in the GPCs are highly sought after by the ASCC commanders in USARAF and Indo-PACOM, for instance. So maybe that's an opportunity there. We're looking at DPW CSL commander billets. We all know there's some engineers out there that would really like an opportunity to be a DPW commander or be into DPW. Sometimes the installations like Fort Cavos and Fort Liberty, their MILCOM budgets rival some of the USACE districts that we have right now. So there may be a great opportunity there for us to get some lieutenant colonels into those command billets. We're exploring installation and immaterial commands. However, those we can't really code for engineers. We would have to compete for them in BCAP and then the CSL process. And we're not sure how many we could get in totality. Recruiting commands are another one that's on here, but not listed. Lastly, we're looking to potentially make some of our USACE districts that aren't currently 06 level CSL commands, turn them into potentially 05 CSL level commands in the future. And then of note, and you see the 2-star asterisk at the bottom, it says what's required to do some of these things that we've been exploring right now. Hey, Sir Colonel Gletz, I will pause here for any of your comments, reinforcement on the slide.
Yeah, JD, something else that we've been discussing as of late are, what opportunities exist in a multi-compo environment, for leaders as well. There are two ways to get after this. There's the supply side on the 05, right? Because in Compo 1 now, for officers, the pacing item, if you will, becomes a CSL 05, but there's a demand side as well, where some smoothing of 06 demand, I think, helps. And then, what's the possibilities of, say, for example, taking a Compo 3 officer, running them through CCAP, and if they've got the skills to command and desire to command in Compo 1, is that a fit and is that a possibility? And so I think multi-compo is the future. I think this is driving us towards multi-compo. It's something we're considering as well.
Sir, acknowledge all great points, and so definitely something we're exploring. And I know some of the branches at HRC with their own E30F cuts have been exploring opportunities in the reserve for some of their commanders to go to. So Ty Ellis and I are going to tag into that and get some more details on it. But I think it's a great point and probably an unexplored opportunity we're going to look into. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide, where I know we got a lot of majors and captains that are soon to be majors on the net. So here's what we've been exploring and looking at in terms of engineer major talent management. So you can see right now we have, when you look at battalion and brigade, KD opportunities for majors in the engineer regiment, currently 118, going down to 82 in E30F, a difference of 36 total. And so right now we depicted what's currently KD at DAPM 600-3, pretty much anything that says battalion or brigade S3 or XO. And then of course we have our special forces group and ranger regiment engineer positions that are deemed KD as well. Interesting factoid, we've had conversations about SFAB being KD opportunities as well for engineers. With the SFAB command right now views those as broadening opportunities, and they'd rather have seasoned or senior majors in those billets. So that's something we could explore in the future, but we're just not there right now. So question, where does the regiment need majors in 2030 to develop the right KSBs to assume tactical and technical commands in the future? Some of the things we're exploring. Is there a possibility to change USACE deputy district commander positions to district executive officer positions, whether that's just on the books TDA we adjust it, or whether that's we completely change it, but making sure they get rated that way? District executive officer probably messages well to the board. We've got 9 of those right now. From talking to some people, they say their experiences as a deputy district commander rivaled or were just as important, maybe even more complex as their experiences as a 3 or an XO in a battalion. This is a hot topic and one we'd love to have some feedback on in the group when we get to it. But is there a possibility to make our infantry, air assault, airborne, SBCT brigade engineers, the ones not in ABCT's KD again? The reason why we bring this up is in the current force structure, E30F, we're going to go down to having 1 divisional engineer battalion in our light divisions, 82nd, 101st, 10th Mountain, 25th ID, 4 ID. We're going to go down 11th Airborne Division to having just 1 battalion. So when you look back to the brigade structure now in our light and infantry brigade combat teams, there's only 1 engineer. It's a major. That position is written into the MTO. It's not going away. So we think there's an opportunity to make a KD, because once the battalion BB commander and the field grades go away, that 1 engineer is the key maker now, probably has a good shot at fighting for a good rating. So that's definitely one of the things we're exploring. Geospatial planning says, again, maybe there's an opportunity if we can't make them 05 commands, we make the OIC's positions KD for major. Or if we make 05s and the 04 position remains, we could have some executive officer positions in our GPCs, which now is a pipeline for from lieutenant to captain to major to lieutenant colonel to have upward mobility in those disciplines. We're exploring 31st and 35th for everybody on the net. If you didn't know, they have captains as operations officers right now based off their TDA and force structure within TRADOC. We see there as an opportunity to make those positions for majors. And we have some billets within the schoolhouse that we could use to do it now. And lastly, we're exploring training support battalions, 1st Army, Div West, Div East. Those threes and those units on the books, according to the MTO, are really captains. Is there an opportunity for us to make those majors as well? And of course, it lists on the corner some of the updates. We got to update DAPM 600-3 as engineers, of course, but then there's some other potential TDA or MTO adjustments, which could be a change management plan for a TDA and then a junior FTU for a MTO unit. But we've got to do it at the right point in time and space. Hey, sir, Colonel Getz, I'll pause here for your comments on the major slide.
Yeah, I mean, JD, this is where we really need some feedback from the force. We've had a lot of great folks doing a lot of critical thinking on this, for what are the right jobs to designate as key developmental for majors, right? And I'm not going to make something KD just because I need more KD billets. It's got to be the right billet. And so if there's something that you're aware of that we haven't thought of that you think has the corresponding rigor, generally associated with the 3 or an XO, we are absolutely all ears to listen to you and have a debate about it. Thanks.
Sir, awesome. Appreciate the comments. Moving on to our next slide, headed up to the captain level now. We did the math and rolled up everything from, our detachment commands, in the dive detachments, for example, commands in TRADOC, commands in our operational formation. We came up with around about 194 current. E30F, we're going out to 155, which is a loss of 39 commands. We're fearful that this could create a backlog of captains that need KD for career progression as we kind of move into and enact our E30F transformations to get to the Army of 2030 force structure and force alignment. So just for a highlight, KD positions in DAPM 600-100-3, are pretty much company commanders in any Compo 1 engineer or Army level formation. As long as your OER or your billet says company command, you're going to get credit. And then some of our dive detachment and firefighting detachment company commanders. Of note, funny story, I was a first cadet before we had a horse detachment at Fort Cabos now. That counted as company command. We tried to get the officer another command and operational unit to keep him competitive or give him more of a broadening, better KSB experiences, but that's another example of a detachment command. So what are we looking at? USACE FEST teams. The chief is big on this one. He sees some of the FEST commanders as being on a first name basis with some of our COCOM commanders based off the impact they're having in a deployed environment. So we see those as maybe second command opportunities for some of our best qualified, most well-qualified captains, meaning you would do 1 year in an operational command or a TRADOC command, and then we move you in the second year so you can get a FEST team command, get some early experience to the Corps of Engineers. Is there opportunities to make some of the things in the geospatial planning cell count as a company command? That one might be a tough one. We're tracking our TSBNs, don't have HHC company commanders. Maybe that's something we could explore. Installation HHC commanders. If you all didn't know, every garrison that's in a OCONUS environment, every installation has a installation command, and there's an HHC commander that's there with it. USAREC commands are hot. USAREC is one of the focal points for the Chief of Staff of the Army and Second Army because we're trying to increase our recruiting numbers. Maybe there's some opportunities there. Construction management team commanders. We have construction management teams in all of our engineer brigades. Maybe we make those command opportunities as well. And then sort of like you hit on before, there's definitely an opportunity for Compo 2 and 3 cross-pollination. We've had some success with that with Colonel McGonigal and before her, Colonel Kalush in the 130th, where they have a MOA existing agreements with some of the units from one of the battalions and brigades from the tech. So they've been able to do some cross-pollination that has turned out well. Just to highlight one last thing, installation and USAREC, we can't code those for 12 alphas, but our officers are highly competitive for them. We just have to get them into the market or get them into the pipeline to use those and take advantage of those opportunities. Colonel Getz, sir, I'll pause there for your comments.
Yeah, I mean, JD, I think what I would advise officers to do that, captains, look, if you got a chance to command, you got to take that chance to command. Command is awesome, regardless of the formation, that you're commanding, and you're going to have opportunities out there, either within the regiment or some of these immaterial commands. And regardless of the MOS of the soldiers you're leading, they all need great leadership. And if you get a chance to do it, I encourage you to do it. It's it command is never let down.
Yes, sir. And also, I haven't added it on the slide, but as we've been doing this and briefing as a part of our branch briefs, a lot of captains come up on the net and say, "Sir, I'd love to command in an infantry or armored formation, meaning like maybe an infantry battalion HHC or an HHC in one of our combined arms battalions within our armored brigade combat teams." And I'm always like, "Yeah, let's do that. Rock it." One thing, branch can't put you there. That's something that you would have to, from talking to your raider and senior raiders, tell them that you're interested in that opportunity. Performance is key. And then if they see something special and a talent in you that they think would fit into those commands, there's definitely an opportunity to do it. To tell you the truth, there's an opportunity for junior captains to command line companies in our infantry and armor brigades if they're available and if you can, if you fit the bill, especially in some of our like light infantry, mechanized infantry units where there's Bradleys, because we as engineers are on Bradleys too. But sir, great comments. We'll move on, and we're going to go ahead and turn it over to good old Regimental Command Sergeant Major Plummer to hit some highlights on the NCO side. Sergeant Major, you're net.
Sure, thank you. So, number one, if we're looking at the slides, you'll notice that my slides are pretty different from the rest. So the reason for that is when we looked at this problem set, we took into consideration every single one of the enlisted MOSs within the regiment and then broke it down by rank. So really, a couple things I want to take away from this slide. Number one, focus on the CD time, or known as KD time to others. Those positions that we have in 625 that say is important for your MOS in this grade, and focus on not just doing your job, but doing it well, and staying competitive within those key positions and time frames. On the slide, it didn't lay out every MOS for those positions, just hit some of the highlights. And so the feedback I'm looking for is on the bottom there, that yellow bar. It says, where does the engineer regiment need NCOs in 2030 and beyond to retain talent, right? So I purposely left it blank so that there would be a discussion within the formation and provide feedback to me about what that looks like. We've got a few irons in the fire, if you will, about what those positions might be. One of them I will talk about is USACE. Some of us are tracking that the law preventing warrant officers and NCOs from serving on civil works projects has recently changed. And so now we are working through how we can put NCOs into USACE more than just on a FES team. So that's my biggest takeaway for this. You'll notice you start doing some math behind the scenes and you're counting units and flags that might be changing or transitioning. And as we look through the numbers, the enlisted population is going to be okay. We are still going to have the key positions for NCOs to serve in to continue to grow, and along with several already broadening opportunities out there in the force. So I'd ask that you take this, digest it, and really work that problem on where do we need NCOs to better retain talent. There are some positions out there that I don't think we need. Let's say one question I got recently was, hey, can we put a SAR major back in our GPCs? And the feedback and the answers we came up with is no. We came up with no because the number of personnel in those type of formations do not require the KSBs and talent of a SAR major, and those can be used elsewhere. So, sir, with that, I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, and for the enlisted force out there, the engineer personnel development office, EPDO, the folks that keep track of numbers and strength, they came to SAR Major and I with some analysis, and the conclusion was we don't think we've got a problem in the enlisted force, and SAR Major and I looked at him and said, okay, great, run the numbers again. and we asked them to run the numbers again, and we looked at them personally, and I think our NCOs are going to be okay. And in some cases, you're going to see increased requirements for some grade blates at the 30 and 40 skill levels. And so, Sergeant Major, thanks. Appreciate this very much.
Sir, Sergeant Major, acknowledge all great comments, and Sergeant Major, love the challenge to our NCOs because they're always up to it to help us figure out where do we need to put our future senior NCOs to better retain talent for the Army of 2030. Okay, moving on. Couldn't forget about our warrant officers because they've got a lot of talent we got to manage as well. So when you look at right now, different command types, we got it broken down, rolled it up. We got about 58 current CWC warrant officer positions, and we look within E30F, we're going to end up having a degradation of 17 down to 41. So it results in the loss of our W01, W2 CWC positions by mainly those BEB billets that we're going to lose. And it generally only affects 120 alphas, as 125 deltas did not really see a reduction in positions. So when you look at critical warrant officer positions, and based off their portion of 600-3, it's BEBs, EABs, and then ECCs and our ESCs. So if you all didn't know, recently, Lieutenant General Spellman got it approved with our congressional leaders that USACE is now authorized to employ warrant officers within their districts based off the change and removal of the WARDA Act requirements that prevented it before. So again, where does the engineer regiment need junior officers, junior warrant officers, in 2030 and beyond to develop KSBs that are needed at the more senior CW3, 4, and 5 levels? Things we're exploring is, number one, how do we get USACE officers warrant officers into USACE districts? Can we do like a technical developmental program for our warrant officers? Can we use some of our existing captain billets within USACE that are really hard to fill? To then use some of those to put warrant officers into USACE. And then secondly, maybe there's an opportunity where in the battalions that remain, within our brigade combat teams that are there where the BEVs left, is there an opportunity to put assistant brigade engineer warrant officers into those brigade engineer cells, or we have the major serving as the brigade engineer, putting the warrant officers, still getting them into those BCTs, but putting them there to better help support that major now that the BEB has gone away. And of course, to update, we'd have to update 600-3. And if we were to do some TDA adjustments, they require a change management plan as well. Sir Colonel Getz, I'll pause here for any comments from your foxhole about our warrant officers. Over.
No, again, it's another case where we did the math. JD did the math twice, and we think we're in good shape. And we're just talking authorizations here. Our 120 alpha CW2 population is really, really healthy. One of the few healthy warrant officer populations within the Army, and we think that we're in pretty good shape.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge all. Okay, moving on. Just want to bring everybody up to speed. We touched on some of this stuff to begin this, but on 19 May, the director of the Army staff concurred at the E30F, recommended approval. E30F got approved on 25 May, and we're all awaiting with bated breath or on the tip of our seats for the actual publication of the RStruct. First, it has to get signed by the Sector Army. We're tracking the final draft from the HQDA G357 Force Mod individuals team. Have already submitted that up through the Army staff, and it's waiting on Sector Army official approval. We anticipate that it's about to be the end of June. So now somewhere between July and August, that's going to be out on the street as official. It will list battalions that are getting deactivated, and it will list the force structure that will remain. Of note, if you all, because you all are smart engineers on the net here, if you pay attention to open source media, or you pay attention or get some of the early bird updates or some of the news reads from your commands that you're a part of, the daily news updates that go out to all the commanders, you'll notice that Army senior leaders, I think Sec Army specifically in a podcast or another forum, started messaging some of the cuts we're going to have, some of the force structure changes we're going to start making. If you read that or listen to that or look it up after this meeting, you'll start to see it. But what she's kind of talking about is E30F, and along with about 40 other FDU adjustments that are going on across the whole Army to right size our force structure and to better manage the amount of personnel we actually have in the Army, and also better fight the future wars in multi-domain operations. Lastly, just to show you there's an old saying, sometimes, and it was one of General Funk's, I think, Funk's rules was talking ain't fighting. So in this case, coming up with ideas and not putting any action behind it is not solving this problem set. So Colonel Getz initiated an E30F talent management task force with OCE. Colonel Kalush is the director there. Headquarters USACE at the schoolhouse, engineer branch, our G357 team in EPTO to start setting conditions to enact some of the things that we've seen on these slides. We've been briefing the chief of engineers on a monthly basis about it. Matter of fact, we're briefing him, small group, on some of the talking points and some of the initiatives we're working on next week. So everybody's moving out on this problem set. And we've actually started, we met 5 times already, the task force has. We're in execution mode on several of our E30F talent management initiatives that you've seen on these slides at the lieutenant colonel and major grade plates. And we're committed to doing the homework and actually acting rapidly to help fix this problem set into the future. Sir Colonel Getz, I'll pause here for any comments you may have.
No, JD, I mean, I'll just double down on the urgency with which, we're approaching this. Spent a lot of time talking about it. The chief is absolutely engaged in this, and he is in decision-making mode on this as well. So this is moving really, really quickly. And there's a lot of energy from within the regiment dedicated to studying this, and beyond studying it, really taking some action here.
Yep. Sir, acknowledge all. Okay. There we go. Major General Retired Watson, 93rd. Just like when I was a small group leader in the Captain's Career Course, I tried to meet your intent of keeping this about 40 minutes. We have a great discussion. And I think I went so quickly to try to get at the meat of this that I really didn't introduce myself well. Hey, Lieutenant Colonel John, go by JD Davis. I am your friendly engineer officer, branch chief at HRC. If you need anything, give us a call. My team and I are here to help. Major Ty Ellis and Captain Bree Davis are on the net. They're taking notes for me so we can capture all the good comments and play them forward into our talent management huddles and updates we have going on. And lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I owe a lot of the hard work on these slides to not only my team here at HRC now, but one of the members that left, Lieutenant Colonel Michael, goes by Mike Wehagen, MDW is our nickname for him. He did a lot of hard work with getting this up and running and helping me figure out and see some of these problem sets and helping me create ideas. And Mike's in Europe right now. He's probably sleeping because I think it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But I just want to say—
He's on the net, sir.
Oh, he is? Okay. Well, if Mike's on the net, man, Mike, thanks for making this happen. And thanks for all the hard work. It's really coming and paying dividends. Hey, Major General Retired Watson, 93rd, and Colonel Getz, 100th. I'm going to pause here for comments. Thanks again for allowing me to do this. And I look forward to what everybody's got to say because we're really interested in the feedback. Over.
Yeah, hey, so comment on, if I can, we'll go to questions and I'll give you some time to kind of close us out. And JD, if you could, if you can just go ahead and unshare, we'll go to gallery view.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge all.
So look, here's some, some potential questions. And JD, if you'll, for those of you who have questions, I just ask you, we're looking at everybody. Just come off of mute so you don't have to raise your virtual hand. Just come off on camera, off mute, and then ask your question. But one of the questions that was in the chat, and I've got about 6 or 7 of them, is maybe Comrade, you can take this one on. How is this getting messaged to the maneuver commanders? In other words, if you're down there in a brigade combat team, either as a captain or a major, what is the cognizance of the senior Army colonels, brigade commanders, maneuver battalion commanders that this is going on?
Yeah, thanks, sir. So I feel really, really comfortable with some of the senior engineer leaders out there, battalion commanders, brigade commanders, and their corresponding sergeants major, that they've got the knowledge that they need to carry the water with their maneuver commanders. But one of the things we ask those senior leaders to do is not only be leaders of their organizations, we ask them to be leaders of the regiment with duty at wherever they are, to carry the message of the regiment to the maneuver commanders. I spent a fair amount of time communicating with corps commanders, corps DCGs, division commanders, the occasional maneuver brigade commander, and talk to them closely about this to make them aware of what changes are coming within their organization. And so at that level, I think there's some cognizance there. I think we can do a better job within our own ranks of making sure that some of the younger members and frankly some of the folks that this is most likely to affect, one, fully understand what's going to happen, and two, understand that there are going to be opportunities for them out there, as a result of this. And so I need engineer leaders to carry the water, not only outside of their organizations with maneuver commanders, but also inside of their organizations as well. And if you got questions, come to the engineer school or come to OCE, and we'll square you away and tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, and so, Commandant, part of your message is, we've got a wide array of folks that are on the net right now. And, this is an opportunity, I think, for battalion commanders down in BEBs in particular, to go talk to the maneuver commander, their boss, and increase their own cognizance, not only of what is the force structure change, but maybe some of the talent management. And I believe they can come to the school, and certainly for the slides that we use tonight, they can use those as a basis for those office calls. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. I think these slides are a great start. I think once the R-Struct comes out and they're able to talk in some greater detail about timelines, I think that is a continuation of that conversation. Again, come to the schoolhouse, come to OCE. We will take care of you and give you the information you need to have a productive conversation with your other commanders.
Yeah. And then one of the other questions, that I think probably, well, JD and for the Commandant is multi-compost. This came up in a couple of the chats. I know the decision hasn't been made about where this is going to follow in terms of the Guard and the Army Reserve, but that discussion has yet to happen. So there's no decisions. Is that about right?
So that's right. We started this odyssey about 2 years ago. One of the assumptions or constraints for planning was that this was a Compo 1 exercise. And so this thing has been exclusively Compo 1, but I think, we'd be naive to think that the impacts and say, if not changes in force structure, the changes in force design within our existing structure won't trickle down to Compo 2 and Compo 3. And I've seen some reserve component leaders, up on the net. I think it's great. I think, your attention is warranted because my gut feel is this is probably a leading indicator of something that's coming for the Guard and the Reserve.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, so there's a young captain, Captain Cartea, asking about wet gap crossing. So, Captain Cartea, can you come off mute and ask your question to the Commandant and to Colonel Davis?
Hey, sir, I see his question
Yeah,
here.
so his question was, with all the emphasis on gap crossing, Commandant, how is the EF30? Where is it moving the MRBCs? And JD, I understand this is not part of the talent management, but it is a good question with all the emphasis that we've got on gap crossing.
Yeah, sir, it's a great question. So there's going to be no change to the number of bridge companies, that we have in Compo 1. So we're going to grow the ones we said we were going to grow in Compo 1. Each one of the heavy divisions in Compo 1 is going to have at least one MRBC at their location. And so they're going to, maneuver commanders, maneuver units, and engineers are going to be able to train together in a live environment for gap crossing. So, the Army has not lost focus on, what we know as Gap 8. They're resourcing it, and we're going to get there by the end of FY28. And we're going to have the forces in the right locations for training.
Okay, great. So anybody have a question, come off mute, and particularly if it's regarding the talent management. If you want to ask a force structure question, that's fine too. But I think we've got to really keep focused on, what we're going to do. What are some of the ideas out there on talent management? So I'll pause if there's anybody who wants to come off mute.
Hey, Brian, thanks. Dwayne Drummond here in Maine. Hey, I put this in the chat, but I wonder where we go with our, as we climb the pyramid with environmental being a larger piece of what we do, and sustainment, energy stuff that, if you're following any of the stuff that's coming out, it's already eating our lunch. So do we have a vision where some of those, I don't know if it's really broadening, because I think they are, in the engineer realm, at least professionally, that we at least look at how the Army is going to bite off that very large and very current change in the way we do business.
So,
And I'm gonna mute.
General Drummond, it's interesting, having a conversation with the PDASA for IE&E, whose name escapes me right now. I apologize. We were talking about, what the power requirements are going to be beyond the Army, of 2030, because they're certainly not going to shrink. And we see some of these new capabilities are really going to require a heck of a lot of power, and really we begin to get in the realm of prime power type requirements. What we agreed to do was continue the conversation, and so I think we haven't gotten there yet with really envisioning what the future of power is for the Army of 2040. And it's a profoundly probably unsatisfying answer. We know we've got something we've got to do. It just the conversation hasn't moved much beyond acknowledging that there's going to be a requirement.
I kind of see, I think it's a tougher nut for the Army than, I'm a Combo 2 guy, and, we have, positions in the TDA, and, they are, in the installations management arena. So there's a, it's not an uncommon path for an engineer officer to be a environmental or energy manager, within the organization. So I see that being, big Army having a little bit tougher time, active duty wise, how we put the right people, the smart people into those roles.
Yeah, so, hey, Dwayne, it's a great topic, and I think, the Army's emphasis on broadening people younger and younger is really gets at some of that issue, their ability to handle these kinds of more complex problems. Hey, JD, there was another question that came up in chat, and then I'll go back out to the audience, but just keep the ball rolling. Many of the things that we talked about here, as being one of the old guys, I've gone through every single one of those force structure changes. So this is nothing new for the group. It's a lot of anxiety. It's nothing new. And some of it is a return to things that we've done in the past, but in a new way. So has HRC, as you guys have done this talent management, have you looked back? So I'll just pick the example, brigade engineers in a brigade combat team, that used to be a major slot. It used to be a KD position. Have we looked at how well they fared? Because I know a number of them that became battalion commanders and went on to be colonels, and a couple that were flags. So has there been sort of a retrospect on how some of, although it's different talent management, there are things that we did in the past that worked?
Yeah, sir, acknowledge all, and great question. And similar to you, sir, we've pulled specific files or looked at some of the officers that are still serving or have served and looked at their backgrounds and identified, sir, that yes, Brigadier General Peoples is an excellent example of a senior engineer leader that really just did her KD time as a brigade engineer because she was doing so well that her brigade commander, I think it was in 4ID, wanted to keep her there, but she's now a general officer. The former 1st Engineer Brigade commander, Colonel Law, did his time in as a brigade engineer in a BCT. I think it might have been 4ID as well, sir. So yes, there are cases of success that exist. We're looking into it more to see if we can look further back and identify overall how successful were they, sir. But I think there is a pathway to success for our brigade engineers. And sir, as a young lieutenant and captain serving in Iraq, I remembered that as I was transitioning, doing Task Force Trailblazer in the mighty 14th Engineer Battalion Rugged to the division and brigade AOs, I know that if I had to stop it, whether it be Balad, if I had to stop at Warhorse or Palawada or Spiker, that if I could find the brigade engineer that was there, that major would help me out. And I knew that if I needed something, I would go to that because that major was a kingmaker for that brigade. And so I think that's the way it's going to go, almost back to the future, with that position being, if you want it and you're willing to work for it, then I think you're going to have a great opportunity to have an impact. Because when, dare I say, it hits the fan, they're going to look for the engineer and be like, hey, how can you help us solve this? Like, hey, we got a problem to solve. We want to get to there, help us do it. So I think there's instant relevance there for that brigade engineer over.
Okay, great. Let me go out to the audience. Anybody got a question? Just come off mute.
Yeah, sir, Ron DeBerry. Before the BEBs were organized in the early 90s, for 50 plus years before that, we only had the one engineer battalion in a division. We've got plenty of doctrine on how that operated. It was successful. The BEBs were an improvement, but when the one battalion in there was the way the Army operated. So there's plenty of experience or plenty of doctrine written on how to do it. The other comment I would make is the littoral Marines are going to the littoral regiments, and the building block there is a battalion. And each battalion, they're putting an engineer platoon in every battalion. We're stripping them out and they're putting them in. So there's a disconnect.
Yeah,
Outsourced.
Ron brings up a great point in the joint context in particular. So, we've seen reductions in Red Horse. We've seen reductions in our Navy Construction Regiment and CVs. Has EF30 been thought of in sort of a joint engineered capability context, and having the service engineers kind of look at, cross-service impacts of EF30? Over.
So, that's been something that we've brought up to the Army as, this has made its way through, and we've had to, defend force structure. And we've made it known to the joint staff as well. So as they do, the joint risk assessment is external looking, but as a joint force looks at capabilities, across portfolios or across services to accomplish missions, that risk is something, that we articulate through the J4 on the joint staff, once a quarter. And so they do look at it. This, sir, though, that by and large services look at, tend to their own needs first. So we're messaging this. It's a little bit of an uphill battle, although I'll tell you that when we fight, for example, bridging, and part of this is, hey, the Marines have divested of all their, assault bridging and, assault bridging, right? Eyebrows raise, and people begin to understand, the criticality of maintaining some of these capabilities within the Army.
Yeah. And but there's also the talent management piece of this. So, maybe if all of the services, as they make their force structure change, they may be faced with the same exact sort of talent management. And is there now maybe a cross-service chief of engineer agreement that we need more joint engineer specific slots, again, to maybe help us shape in our majors and lieutenant colonels across all the services, everybody. It may be that we're all in the same shape, but we can also help each other from a joint perspective.
No, sir. I mean, I agree. I've got kind of a running list of topics I want to run by the chief for him to bring up at the Joint Operational Engineer Board, of which he's the chair of all the senior service engineers. I think that's a really great point. I'll add it to the list.
Okay. Any others? Let's see. We had
Sir, this is Major Jesse Kane, if I can ask a question.
yeah, Jesse, please.
Gentlemen, we've had a really good discussion here on brainstorming, and a lot of good work has been put into how do we get after it. I think as we talk about messaging to the force, the biggest thing we're struggling with is seeing the numbers. So we did the analysis and it showed on the slides how many colonels we're going to be short for FY25. The big question is how many officers at each grade plate by year group, are we over strength with this force reduction? Over.
Yeah, Jesse, a great question. JD, have you got that one for you?
Yep. No, hey, sir, I definitely do. And I know Ty Ellis from my team is on the net. I can't pull it up directly right now because the way my computer is working, but like the bluff for everyone on the net is we are over strength at every rank and grade and engineer branch, to the tune. I think if I were to pull it today, we're probably about like maybe 140 something percent over strength. But the reason why that is the Army at HRC, we track based off 12 alpha MTO positions, and then what our structure, excuse me, what our manning is for it. What HRC does not account for by each branch is all the immaterial O1 and O2 alpha jobs that exist across the whole Army, where each branch is a bill payer for those. So in reality, where it may seem like we could be short positions or we're not going to have enough places for people to go, when you look at the Army writ large, there's enough wriggle room to move people into places. And a classic example of this, sir, is 2302. So that's the last summer assignment cycle market we ran last October, closed in late November. Those officers are moving now. We had 22,000 requisitions, valid requisitions that came into HRC that officers could go serve at, encompassing all the ranks and grades from 06 all the way down to our junior officers, to our lieutenants. We only had 10,000 officers moving. So, doing engineer math in public right now, that's a 2-to-1 ratio. There were 2 jobs for every 1 officer that was moving in the last summer assignment cycle. So we have requisitions to fill for people to go to. The question really becomes, can we get them to the right requisition, or can I get them, sir, to like a KD producing location to make sure that when they move and move with their families, I can get them to somewhere where there's a KD opportunity, not just to a location where they will get a job and can earn a paycheck from the Army, but where they can career progress and have an opportunity to continue to grow. Over.
Yeah. So JD, let me for Jesse, let me try and re-summarize. So first of all, we are over strength when you look at specific engineer requirements. However, when you aggregate that in our contribution of what Army-wide requirements are, we're about on glide path. Maybe a little bit over, but about on glide path. The key to what the Covenant and you are trying to do is now let's get a better choice in those so that we are enhancing the professional development as opposed to just filling a spot. Is that kind of where we're at?
Yes, sir. You're spot on. And just for example, for everybody who's on the net, if they're wondering what immaterial jobs I'm talking about, all of recruiting command is coded 01, 02 alpha. There's no like 12 alpha job in recruiting command necessarily. It's recruiting company commanders. Any branch could fill that job, but the Army needs them, and it's a #1 priority for the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Secretary of the Army. ROTC, another great example. All our ROTC instructors, immaterial jobs. So those are the ones everybody has to help fill. And so you're spot on too. There was a great question about how are we managing markets moving forward, knowing that these deactivations are occurring. In essence, sir, how do we make sure that we don't send officers to locations in the next assignment cycle, 2402, which means they would arrive next summer, which is when we're going to start in fiscal year 25 making deactivations, where we could be sending an officer to a location where the KD opportunity will deactivate in 25. They just got there in the summer of 24, and now they're stuck. So what we're going to end up doing, sir, is once the RStruct gets published and everybody will see it, we can see it now and are starting to right size the market to ensure that we're not going to overload locations where the battalions are going to deactivate with new officers. We're going to leave the officers in the queue there so they can get a chance to get KD. And then we're going to move those officers to locations where we are retaining and have more engineer force structure so they can stay competitive. And of course, sir, we're going to move them to locations where growing KD opportunities as well.
Yeah, so JD, you made that comment. I think most folks don't really know what the RStruct is, but the Army's structure memorandum comes out and it really is, it combines forces, manpower, stationing, and it's really what then drives HRC. So it takes a look then at what is the future force and the glide path to get there and helps HRC make the right decisions. The issue is we don't have the RStruct yet.
Yes, sir. Exactly right. Because, sir, I know I speak for the Commandant, speak for the RCSM as well, sir. We would love to share what we know now, but we have to allow senior leaders time to message it correctly, to make sure congressional leaders understand what we're doing, because there's some angst there. But as soon as we can get the information out, we definitely will.
Okay.
Hey, sir.
great. Yeah.
Hey, sir, if I may add, so one of the other things is that we're doing the right size thing. We're going to split the major market this time. So there will be a pre-KD major market and there'll be a post-KD market. The other thing is, like, most of us came into the Army as lieutenants, and it was about 300 in our cohort. By the time a major is up for lieutenant colonel, we are at about 70 in that cohort. The last FY, which a lot of people think was an anomaly, we only promoted 45 officers. And based on that 45 and that 06 requirement, that's 39. So what we're trying to do is make sure we have a talented cohort to choose from, and we're not promoting any officer that made it to the CSL list. Over.
Yeah, great point, Todd. Okay, any others in the audience? And we still got about another 10 minutes and then we'll wrap up. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. This is Major Brittany Clark.
Yeah, Brittany, go ahead.
Given the previous question, with the deactivation of some of these KD billets, will serving in a branch immaterial KD billet be a discriminator in the future for trying to get one of those engineer KD billets at a higher grade?
Brittany, great question. And I will tell you that there's numerous examples like we talked about where we have officers and senior leaders, like I'll throw one out there, Brigadier General Peoples did installation command for her, I think battalion and brigade level command, and the commandant can correct me if I'm wrong, and she still ended up being a general officer in the engineer regiment. So the quick answer to your question is, I don't foresee immaterial jobs, assignments holding anyone back. I think, Brittany, the key thing is going to be, perform well. And the commandant talks about these three things. I brief it all the time, and I'm going to steal his thunder here. But, if you want to know what I tell all our junior officers as I go around and talk E30F, I tell them that there's things that made officers successful from the time I came in the Army till my point now. And the first thing is to be a good dude or dudette, meaning be a good team player. Be about the team, be about helping people, being about leading to serve, like Major General Retired Watson always says. If you're a good leader and you look to take care of people and you were a good teammate, then people are going to see that and they're going to want to take care of you. Second thing is performance is key. No matter what job you're in now and into the future, I tell you, be the best you can at it. Like, it's almost like if you're not going to do it well, why are we doing it at all? Like, you should strive to be the best officer leader in whatever job you have. Even if you're a staff officer, you're really just a staff leader. So lead your staff well, and I'm sure that your senior raider and raider are going to see that and take care of you. And lastly, and this is a joking one, and it was funny because it came up today, but if you don't know what to do, just do what your boss tells you to do. And then if you still don't know, do what your boss told you to do. And if you have a third thought, do what your boss told you to do. Because if it doesn't go quite right, you can always be like, sir, ma'am, we did what you told us to do. We brought up some concerns and we still did what you told us to do after that. So here's where we are. But sir, Colonel Getz, I know you have some thoughts on that one as well.
Yeah, JD, it's almost like you took the words right out of my mouth. No, I mean, well said. No, I've got nothing further to add. Thanks. Well done. Glad you listened.
Sir, okay, I'm a learning organism. I may not get everything right, but I learn rapidly. Oh.
Yeah, so we've got a question from Kevin Lawhorn too. So Kevin, can you come off mute and ask your question? Yeah, Kevin, I show you off mute. Go ahead. So, Colin, I'll try and ask it for him. You see it in chat, total Army context. And I know you can't speak for the other branches, and we all understand, but you did kind of allude to, you and JD, that there is a much broader. Secretary of the Army's come online and said, hey, we're relooking at the force. Any thoughts on how this is going to play out in terms of the other disciplines, other professions, other branches in the Army?
Yeah, I mean, sir, I think a lot of, everyone's feeling the squeeze. I don't think, You can't go from 485 to 452 and not have everyone feel the squeeze, with maybe a couple exceptions. Our brothers and sisters in fires and air defense. Obviously, but I think everyone is feeling the squeeze, and everyone has to justify every piece of structure that they have. Kevin's question about immaterial opportunities in trade space. The way branch immaterial commands work is its best athlete. When it comes to filling those positions, what I think is going to happen is, quantitatively, we're going to see the number of engineer coded command opportunities decrease in the short term, or we're going to build it back. Qualitatively, we're the same regiment that we've ever been. We have fantastic people. And so when we have fantastic people um, compete well for branching material possibilities, I'm very confident that we're going to see more engineers, show up in branching material CSL positions.
Yeah, so just to give everyone a little bit of perspective, I could not agree with the commandant more, for what it's worth, because I'm an old retired guy. But as I've watched this, our branch has always competed well as division chiefs of staff, division G3s. We've done well most recently in both brigade combat teams, when you think about our branch, and as assistant division commanders. And so our branch at its core is known to be combined arms in its orientation. And, we've always been sort of a commander's choice when it comes to some of these branching material. And I think part of this talent management thing that JD and the commandant are getting after is we cannot lose that. Okay. And so that's why this talent management is really, really so important. It's at the very core of who we are. Okay, we got time for one more question from the group, and then I'll go to wrapping it up.
Hey, sir, it's Major Pat Rips in Charleston District. You guys copy?
Yes, sir.
Hey, so there's been a lot of great talk tonight about the sort of unique technical capabilities that engineers bring to the Army force, and I think we really do and ride this wave of technological progression that we're seeing, and all these major increases. Has there been any look at maybe creating a functional area for engineers that specifies and focuses on those technical jobs that might kind of get us an opportunity to get some of our greatest strengths, that technical expertise, and also kind of recreate and relocate some of those positions that we might be losing over?
Hey, sir, I'll take this one. So Pat, I have thought about it, and I'm not there yet, frankly. But here's what I'm seeing, though, in terms of the opportunities in E30F. So when you talk about kind of special opportunities to specialize, I think they're going to be there, and I'll give you a few examples, right? So, for example, if geospatial is really something that you're interested, if you're what I call geo curious, you're going to have a chance to do GeoDP as lieutenant or captain. You can go to it's not the Royal School of Military Survey anymore, but that's what I still call it. With the follow on to NGA, you can serve. Probably going to have the opportunity to serve in a GPC as a major. You're probably going to have a opportunity to command as a lieutenant colonel, and then you can be TPO Geo as an 06. And so there's a path for an officer that thinks like that is what I want to do, and that's my niche in the regiment, and I just love it, for them to become experts in that. Same on the general engineering construction side. You do tech DP. You could go to a district after company command. You could command an engineer construction company. You could be a KD, deputy district commander, as an 04, and you could command districts or DPWs as an 05, and then 06 district command. And so if that's your thing, there's a path there for you. And then again, if you're just hey, my roots are with maneuver, or I want to experience everything what the regiment has to offer, and you want to be a decathlete, and kind of do a little bit of it all, that's all out there for you as well. And so I think we're creating those paths. I'm not sure I want to create functional areas. Not sure the Army would support any functional areas per se, but we're building a path for officers who are interested in any of those things to have really successful, fulfilling careers doing what it is they want to do for our regiment.
Yeah, and I think because of who we are, McGonigal brought up a great point out in Hawaii. There are things in our career path that just naturally suit us well for some of these assignments. We are, incredibly well suited to be installation commanders. Just by how we, and so I think, as you go through this talent management, there are these increased opportunities. This is not all gloom and doom. I'm going to end it there. I will just give you a quick few comments from an AEA standpoint, and then comment, and I'll turn you over to you to kind of close this up. Look, this is what this forum is all about. A hot topic, bring the regiment together, multi-compo, all ranks, make it accessible, and let's have the debate. And so when I took over AEA as a president, I said, we're going to continue to help commanders recognize excellence. We're going to connect the regiment in its professional discussion and with industry. We're going to honor the service and sacrifice of our fallen, and our lineage as engineers is what we're going to preserve. This is a huge part of that. I need your help. If you like this forum, if you have topics that you want this forum, you can message me. You can send me an email. You can post it on Army Engineer, and you can really show me your support by becoming a member, because I got to get the membership up. So with that, Commandant, sir, I will turn it over to you.
Sir, thanks very much. Let me first go to Sergeant Major, who would like a word.
Sure, thank you. Just a couple things I want to bring up. Again, even on the enlisted side, we compete very well outside of the regiment. If you kind of just look around of faces on the wall and who's in what positions out there, as far as who do we have as BCT CSMs, and Sergeant Major Del Pena out there as the 82nd CSM. And it's just proof that it's not what job you have, it's how well you're doing that job is going to get you to the next level, if you will. There's a lot of comments in the chat very focused on the officer side of this discussion, but I want to reiterate to the force that a lot of those questions pertain to the enlisted side as well. And we have solutions for a lot of those questions if proposed by the enlisted side. An example I'll give is going back to the AIM question in the marketplaces, and are they lining up with as we go? And it's the same discussions I've had with, Sergeant Major Hill and Colonel Love at Engineer Branch for Enlisted. We are already starting to align those along with Sergeant Major Management Branch, so that we're not putting Sergeant Majors on assignment to be a CSM in a battalion that's going to potentially go away. So that we're looking at the same problems and trying to solve them. So as the regiment continues to evolve, one of the things I'm trying to make sure I'm doing is we change 625 and our board guidance to meet the requirements of the regiment and to make sure we've got the right talent in the right positions. One other question in the chat was brought up by Captain Obdal. I messed up your name, sir. You can yell at me later. To give you a peace of mind, yes, is a short answer. I actually talked with Sergeant Major Vern Daly today about positions in Alaska for an enlisted side. So we're having those conversations with divisional units. We're just waiting to see how a couple things flush out. I just want to end on thanks. It takes a lot of people to get this online and get it going and getting it out to the force. And it also takes all the people that came in and dialed in for this conversation that's going to help us spread the word out to the regiment. So with that, sir, I'll pass it over to you. Thank you for the time.
Sergeant Major, thanks. Thanks for your leadership. Hey, look, just a few things to wrap up. Look, I'm asking for your help in messaging the changes that are coming inside and outside of the force. In your engineer formations, people need to know what is happening. And I need you to continue to get up to speed on what these changes mean and what the opportunities are out there within our formations. And I need you to extend that conversation to the maneuver community so that they're informed as well. And I do think that there's some opportunity here that I laid out and some of the ways that you can use your unique skills and things that you want to do to serve the regiment and our army that can lead to a successful career. In my heart of hearts, we are going to get this right. I truly believe that we are going to get this right. And the foundation of this profession is trust. And I need you to trust me on this and know that we've got too many dedicated and talented people staring at this day in and day out who love the regiment too much to let anything happen to it that's not good for the regiment. I need you to trust me when I tell you that we're going to be absolutely okay. But I need all of you. The foundation of our credibility is the things that you do out in the operational army every day for our army. The thing that gives me the wasta to walk into someone's office and speak with authority on engineers and what we need and be believed is your performance and what you're doing out there. And I'm incredibly grateful. And I love this regiment with all my heart. And so thanks for what you're doing, and incredibly grateful to you. So if you got any questions, hit me up on email or Sergeant Major. We will answer all your questions, and just appreciate you. Thanks for what you're doing, sir. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, so Commandant, thank you. And Regimental Command Sergeant Major, thank you, sir, for being here. JD, I guess I'll thank you. I love you. And hey, Dave Tyson from AEA Executive Director. Dave is going to be leaving us here soon. Dave, you have done an incredible job bringing Engineer Rally Point to fruition. Look, Dave tells me that we should have both the video and the slides hung on the Army Engineer website, on the association's website. If you go to Engineer Rally Point, you can find all of the ones that we've conducted, videos and slides. We should have that by Tuesday. If you want to, we'll need the weekend to upload it and all that. I think Dave probably has just slow internet. So look, thanks for everything. Thanks for dialing in, and please let us know if there are topics you want. And Commandant, we'll be looking for another Engineer Rally Point in 2 months.
Can't wait. Sounds good, sir.
All right. Thanks again. Lead to serve. Essayons.
Seance.
Seance.